Hello and welcome to Swarthycast. Today's topic is Deadpool 2. Well, this movie is certainly an improvement over the first Deadpool, although, as mentioned before, my thoughts on it are a bit more complicated. Who knows, maybe that's because, I was actually invested enough to have complex thoughts on it, so that's a point for this movie, I guess. So I suppose I should get the elephant in the room out early. Spoilers for the following video, which probably should be obvious. So Deadpool's love interest, wife, I think, dies, at the beginning of the movie, which serves as kind of the catalyst for the rest of the events of it. Now, as you may or may not know, in comic books, and hell, even a lot of media, there's this common trope in both comic books and hell, even movies, where a character's dead spouse, specifically a male protagonist's dead wife, tends to serve as a catalyst for, the events of the rest of the movie and even their character growth. I mean, hell, this isn't necessarily relegated strictly to, husbands and wives. I mean, dead families are kind of a cornucopia of character motivations in Hollywood. But yeah, in superhero stuff particularly, there is this tendency for male hero protagonists to have dead wives and to serve as kind of a instigator for them, or at the very least a major part of their characterization and motivations. So, let me start by saying that the usage of a trope like this isn't inherently bad, but, on some level it's wow, can you, not have a superhero in a happy relationship? Not just with dead ones, but also, dysfunctional relationships that are, falling apart because of superheroism, i.e. Spider-Man, all the drama. But it's can't a superhero just, be in love or be in a good relationship with someone? I don't know, fuck. The trope can be used to good effect, and it can be used in ways that actually serve the narrative and serve the movie or piece of media itself. But I think with the discussion of #problematic trends, there's a tendency to focus too much on individual purveyors of the trope rather than the broader trend. In particular, one way I've noticed this is typically in discussion of sexualized women. In, particularly more escapist fantasy-type media, there's this tendency for the women to, be designed to be sexually attractive, as it were, to the point where it can actually become difficult to find major female characters who are not sexualized to some degree, with several industries seeming to be dominated by heterosexual male horniness. The thing to remember is that the issue is not, individual characters being, presented as super sexual, because, horny games can be good. But the issue is the pervasiveness of it, as well as the double standard often accompanied with it. Sexy women aren't bad, but can we get some sexy men every once in a while? Fuck. Yeah, often the double standard is more an issue, where, men can be presented in various non-sexual ways, where it kinda seems like women have this more pressure to be sexually desirable. But, in a way, the pushback against this pervasiveness of female sexualization is kind of this annoyance at individual examples of the trope. And don't get me wrong, I certainly understand if that's not someone's cup of tea, but, it's best not to ascribe, what is ultimately feelings caused by a trope's pervasiveness to individual examples of the trope itself. The pervasiveness of the trope, however, can sometimes get me feeling oh, another example of that, huh? Great. But, it's important to step back and remember that the issue is not necessarily the trope itself, and there are games with super sexualized women that, I do like. Not just in the sense of being able to like problematic media, but in some sense that it did the particular trope well, and that the issue is not the game itself using that trope, but rather the pervasiveness of it and the broader context of that trope. So yeah, getting back to Wade's dead wife. Personally, I felt the movie handled the trope pretty well, with Wade's love interest actually being one of the better ones. That doesn't necessarily mean I want, all the other superhero movies to, copy, Wade's love interest or do exactly what Deadpool did, because, one of the issues of love interests is kind of a lack in variety in how they're presented. Deadpool and Vanessa's relationship feels authentic, and it feels loving. Like, Vanessa feels like an actual character, and while of course not the same level of development as Wade, she doesn't feel like a prop. She feels like an actual character who people actually care about. Like, I wouldn't mind if she didn't die, mind you, but, her dying was, utilized well, and she wasn't a complete prop of a character. Like, it's important to remember that the problem isn't any individual usage of the trope, but rather the broader trend. Although, not gonna lie, I can understand why people might, see Vanessa being dead and just kind of groan because, oh, here we go again. Because no matter how well it's done, it's still another example of a trope that's maybe a little too prevalent? Although, personally, I didn't have much issues with this. Like, my issues with the film more boil down to, how it handled some of its themes. But we'll get to that later. Now on to the meat of the movie, I guess, with that rambly stuff out of the way. I mean, who am I kidding? This entire thing's rambling. Who cares? Ultimately, what Deadpool is, as a movie, is a mixture between a standard superhero movie and an R-rated comedy. While certainly a unique superhero movie, it never really breaks away from the standard tropes of it. Like, it's a straight-up fusion rather than any kind of subversion of a superhero movie. Like, while the blending is interesting and, I suppose, unique, the standard tropes of a superhero movie are very much there. And the comedy for Deadpool 2 is greatly improved over the first one, as in I actually laughed. Deadpool 2 more embraces the Deadpool character and his antics, as it were. Now, I'm not gonna say it's perfect. Some of the same issues I had with the first one still applied. Like, some of the jokes still felt a bit mean-spirited and, well, even unnecessarily dark, and, my issues with R-rated comedies still pretty much persist in Deadpool 2. While certainly a lot funnier, this type of movie is not necessarily something I can, watch at any time. As you may or may not know, X-Men kind of serves as an allegory for racial prejudice. Not a perfect one, mind you, because like a lot of racism allegories, there's this tendency to either accidentally or unintentionally make the bigot to be somewhat rational, or at the very least sympathetic. With racial allegories attempting to understand racism by making the racist sympathetic, to put you in their shoes to understand why they are the way they are, which, doesn't really work because racism is not rational or sympathetic. I mean, it's not like black men have superhuman powers that let them, upturn cars or whatever. Not to say that the X-Men can't be used well, but, there's kind of an inherent issue with the allegory. Plus, there are some X-Men books that, handled the bigotry allegory just, badly. Just bad. The X-Men have been used as an allegory for a variety of prejudices, most obviously racism, given their 60s roots, but they have been used for other marginalized identities as well. For example, the X-Men films has used the mutants as an allegory for gay people, essentially. It's this mutant as gay allegory that Deadpool ultimately runs with the main conflict centering around what is essentially a gay conversion center, but for mutants. With the leader of the conversion center that abuses mutants out of anti-mutant prejudice, even being a religious zealot. Near the beginning of the movie, Wade helps deal with an outburst from a mutant caused by that, mutant conversion facility, with, it ending with Wade and that mutant going to prison, a mutant prison. Basically a jail where a bunch of mutants are housed with a variety of explicitly anti-mutant guards. The mutants in there are actually kind of displayed as, kind of genuinely dangerous, in stereotypical jail fashion where everyone in jail is a violent madman or what have you. Although for something as coded as the way that mutants are, that's a bit troubling because, We have a bunch of people of a coded marginalized identity jammed together into a prison with a variety of guards who are explicitly prejudiced against that identity, and you present that marginalized identity as genuinely dangerous and violent. Like it's probably unintentional, but I don't know, it does seem like you're crossing wires a bit, movie. Like, its explicit themes are, anti-prejudice, anti-abuse, but, that one moment is a bit troubling. And during the jail scene is where Cable shows up, who I actually really loved. Like, he's kind of, a standard angsty superhero with a dead family, But, the way he was handled was actually really interesting. Cable traveled to the past in order to prevent the death of his family, which he does by attempting to kill the mutant kid that Deadpool went to jail with. Well, that kid's name is Firefist, by the way. And this serves as kind of the main conflict between Deadpool and Cable, because, Deadpool is a horrible person, but, even he wouldn't kill a kid. The main reason that Cable is going after Firefist is because after Firefist kills the leader of the mutant conversion therapy camp, or center, he, goes on a murderous rampage, which eventually ends with him killing Cable's family. So the main crux of the film is pretty much Deadpool both protecting Firefist and preventing him from becoming a villain. Although admittedly the framing of people killing people is a bit awkward, with the wires a bit crossed in my opinion. So Deadpool is trying to stop Firefist from killing someone who abused him, because that'll set him on a darker path. Kind of setting blind murder as kind of this thing that sets you on a dark path. Because no matter how much of a piece of shit the guy Firefist wants to kill is, it'll still send him down a dark path, one that, Firefist probably shouldn't go down. And while he's chasing that leader of the mutant conversion camp, it's framed in very threatening ways, with Firefist being presented as this, genuinely terrifying kid, with it being terrifying, the path he's going down, or the role he's trying to take, and the issue is with how it treats every other death, and how it treats Deadpool's killing. Firefist killing an awful person, bad, but, the constant deaths of the mutant prisoners who are, housed in a kind of explicitly bigoted jail, them dying, that's not big of a deal, no need to look on Cable for killing them while trying to get Firefist. But, Cable killing Firefist, that's bad. Plus, there's the fight scene that ended the death of countless of the employees of that mutant conversion camp. Okay, killing the leader of it, bad, that sends you down a bad path, but Domino and Deadpool killing who knows how many guards? Oh, and Cable too. That's okay. It's like the movie can't decide whether indiscriminate murder of irrepentant assholes is a good thing or not. Although I suppose the difference between Domino, Cable, and Deadpool and Firefist is that Firefist is a kid, so, indiscriminate murder is bad if, you're young. And this conflict kind of undercuts the main themes of, Deadpool leading a child away from a dark path while he kind of revels in that path himself. Also, I mentioned how Deadpool kind of more acknowledges how, Wade is an asshole, and how it doesn't ignore deaths like an Iron Man movie might. Well, one instance where it does ignore deaths is in car chases. Although, it is less explicit than Iron Man, so, hey. It's crashes into a bunch of cars where, just logically people must be dead. But I do suppose, if you don't pay attention to it, it might not even exist. So, hey, movies. Woo. But why is the murder of the leader of the Mutant Conversion Center framed as more of a stepping stone to evil than anything Deadpool has done, or hell, even Cable or Domino? I mean, it's we have to stop Firefist from killing this guy to prevent him from going down a dark path. Let's make sure and do it in the most lethal way possible. Another theme of the movie is in how you deal with loss. Admittedly, I think it might have been a bit better handled than the theme about, going down a dark path. Both Cable and Deadpool have essentially lost their family, but they both handle their loss in different ways, kind of exemplified by how each character interacts with Firefist. The death of Vanessa causes Deadpool to become more protective of Fire Fist and to try and lead him away from the dark path, while Cable's loss causes him to actually try and kill Fire Fist because, in the future he was the one who actually killed his family. Cable actually kind of serves as a condemnation of a type of blind revenge that Deadpool might actually go along with. Murder those who hurt those you love. Don't tell me Deadpool is not incapable of elaborate revenge fests. I mean, it does kind of feel like there's a disconnect between the themes of the movie and Deadpool as a character. I mean, I do like how Cable was handled, and his themes were well done. It's just, this kind of conflict between the themes and, Deadpool himself, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it's a good movie and all, really funny, and even well-handled superhero stuff, but, the themes still kind of clash. Another character I feel like mentioning is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Like, she really wasn't in that movie a lot, but, her presence was certainly appreciated. Deadpool's kind of a character where, while you like him, you don't necessarily object to him being constantly insulted. Because, he's fun and all, but he still kind of deserves it. Oh yeah, and I suppose I should mention Domino, who's fucking fantastic. Like, she is hands down one of the funnest characters in the movie. Like, just pure fun. Plus, she actually has some of the greatest action scenes in the film as well. Anyway, back to Negasonic Warhead. Like, she actually has a girlfriend. I mean, her girlfriend is actually less in the movie than Warhead herself, but I suppose I do have to give props for, being a step in a better direction in terms of representation. Although the fact that a same-sex couple that's barely in a movie is a step in the right direction is kind of a testament to just how shitty LGBT representation in movies is. Like, that's revolutionary. Like, Jesus Christ, that's depressing. I mean, it's depressing that just the fact that actually got in the movie is a rare act is depressing. Like, with the amount of, superhero movies where on some level of production, a LGBT character got cut from the movie, so just having Deadpool 2 have a same LGBT character who's not cut from the movie is revolutionary, but goddamn, that's depressing. How many characters get cut? Like the amount of LGBT characters who get cut from films probably outnumbers the actual characters that get in, and that is fucking depressing. Like, just the sheer dearth of LGBT representation in general, let alone good representation. Like, Christ. Not to be a Debbie Downer, because, it is important to acknowledge positive steps in the right direction and to congratulate it, but, it's also important to not let those steps in the right direction be all there is, because there still needs to be a push for more representation, because Teenage Negasonic Warhead is a great character and all, but, we need more than her. I wouldn't be shocked if it'd be 20 years before we can get an LGBT protagonist in a Marvel movie or any kind of superhero movie. I mean, it took fucking years to get a female protagonist, 11 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we're only now getting a female-led film. I mean, it's kind of depressing to be anything but a straight white man and a fan of superhero films. Overall, Deadpool 2 is a pretty good film. While some jokes fell flat and were a bit mean-spirited for my liking, mostly the comedy is pretty decent. While it doesn't vary too much from the standard superhero formula, it is, unlike the first one, a well-done execution of the formula. And while the themes certainly did clash in my opinion, overall this film is an enjoyable experience, and, well, an enjoyable superhero film. So, hey, better than Deadpool 1. Woo!